synthesizers, pop refrains, ballads. All this and it's still metal as fuck. It's Ihsahn with his latest album, Amir. Ihsahn, he's one of these artists who's been forging his own path ever since he started. Of course, he was in the black metal band Emperor, arguably one of the greatest black metal bands. And he's been doing his own thing since 2006 when he released his first solo album, The Adversary. Always one to lead and not follow. He's one of these guys who pushes what you can do with extreme music as opposed to confine himself to the conservative ideals of many a metalhead, unfortunately. Now, in Norse, Amir has a couple of different meanings. First of them being loathsome, but it also means reddish brown or black or dark. And I don't know, the reddish brown thing makes kind of sense. There's elements of that. Well, there's elements of reddish brown and black indeed on the cover artwork. How can anyone be dark when it's just such a lovely day? Oh, this is lovely, this really is. Amir is his 7th studio album and his follow-up to Arctis, which came out in 2016. Just something very quickly before I get into the songs, I don't want to muck about. There was an article that I read with him where he was stating how he was inspired by eerie synth soundtracks of films like Halloween, plus some contemporary R&B and hip-hop stuff. And yes, the synthesizer, that is, features very heavily on this album. And not in a bad way at all, it works very well. Bloody hell. I was not expecting it to be this warm. I may burn. First track, Lend Me the Eyes of the Millennia. Starts out with synthesizers, funny enough. Get those classic feral style Ihsahn vocals. And then later on in the track we get some furious blast beats and tremolo picking. The black metal style. Tobias Orners joins Ihsahn on drums. I think there was an interview I read somewhere that this was one of those drummers that he could pretty much throw any idea at and he would be able to they kind of had an unspoken language. Can you have an unspoken language? Very sinister and atmospheric song, this opening one. I'll just read you a couple of lyrics. Lend me the eyes of the millennia, align the rapid glimpse of lives in frames, like fading photographs in ashes, in desperate seconds closed in by the flames. Let me walk into their cities when dust and sand has covered every trace of love, of pain and liberty. Shit's deep, yo. Lot of synth used on this one, but it's used perfectly. Really strong opener to an album. Really enjoyed this one. Fantastic start. Fantastic start. Track 2, and this is one that you might have already heard, as it's been available for a little while. Arcana Imperi. Imperi. There's 2 I's, I don't know. Does that make it an E or an I? I don't know. Very low tuning on this one. Ihsahn favours using 7 and 8 string guitars, as well as 6 strings, of course. And he's a very proficient instrumentalist indeed. Some of the clean vocals on this track remind me of some of the things that he did on Eremita in 2012, which is a solid album as well, I thought. My God, there are folk! I may have to join you later, there are people to deal with. This one features Friedrich Ackerson of Opeth, lending his considerable talents for a fantastic lead guitar track, I don't know. It's too late, the eyes of the abyss already deep inside. You stayed too long, and now you leave, but nothing changes. Yeah, you fuck. Ihsahn telling it how it fucking is. Nature has set a trap, but I will overcome this natural demon. Unless, of course, I don't. Even when the sun burns, I still have to deal with the remnants of rain. Curse this country. Next up we have Samir. It's Samir. Starts out with a pulsing duo of drum and synth. Yeah, a bit of a ballad this one essentially, but it's not a bad thing. Almost pop-like in a good way. Again, I said earlier on that Ihsahn's one of those people who he pushes the boundaries of what you can do. There's certainly a hell of a lot of stuff for metalheads on this album. There's a lot of those poppier choruses as well. Features some nice strings on this one that builds it, that makes it big, but without getting corny, as was in a recent Godsmack review. With Ihsahn letting us know, I threw my eyes into the void, whatever that means. Why would you throw your eyes in there? Very traditional sounding solo in this one as well. Fantastic. Next up, we have One Less Enemy. Heavy synth on this one, but in a real sinister way. I really enjoyed this track. Making sure there are no folk round corners. Corners are where the folk hide. Always beware. The sun brings out the folk. Really enjoyed the double bass and the chunky riffing. The riffs go between fast tremolo picking, black metal style, to slow chugging, chunky riffs. I love the chorus. It has a real pop-like sensibility, but Ihsahn puts his stamp on it and gives it a real sense of menace. Great use of synth and double bass. There's a proggier section that comes in at around the 3.5 minute mark, with keyboard and guitar battling each other with sort of arpeggiated scales. A refugee of reason in a world of disbelief, outnumbered by the thousands, empowered by the ones I seek. Next song is Where You Are Lost and I Belong. Starts out with some militaristic drumming. Silence is used almost like an instrument throughout the album. To be fair, there is something to be said for the space between the notes as well, used very effectively throughout the entirety of the album. There's an unassuming chorus that works very well. A lot of atmosphere in this song. Really doesn't need to be flashy to make a point. I think that's the mark of a confident artist as well, especially somebody who does music such as this. I've seen you here before, I couldn't reach you. We spoke the truth with bleeding cut-out tongues and turned our backs to all we ever knew in this maze where you are lost and I belong. Next up, In Rites of Passage. Great riff starts this one off. There's some almost Rammstein sounding synthesizers and the vocals sound feral as fuck. I could cut you open with a word, let your blood run down into the soil, if only for a moment to be free, complete with me in rites of passage. I really dig a lot of his lyrics on this album as well. Very well done. He's a pretty goddamn solid artist, Ihsahn, it has to be said. Next up we have Marble Soul. I really love the synth and the way the riff work with each other on this one, before going into a much lower register, and Ornez lending some double bass. Drums, that is, being drums, the double bass drums. To see and feel this frozen river that is tears and blood and fate, washing over me like a cleansing fire, washing over me like it was mine. Next up is Twin Black Angels. Starts out with synth before morphing into another pop-like song. This one is essentially another ballad from Mr. Ihsahn. So I said earlier, he's one of these guys who's just, he's always changing things up and he's never afraid to just go his own path. He leads, not follows. Take heed, people. I've seen you here before, I couldn't reach you. Oh, hang on, is that the wrong one? That was a previous song. Another part of me could have been the unleashed, forever circling back to the crossroads of my dreams, where twin black angels lead the way. Don't know why I looked away then. We have the final song on the album, Wake. The opening riff on this song as well reminded me very much of some of the stuff that was on 2012's Eremita album. An old school sort of thrash type riff opens up this song with some furious double bass. Really tasty solo as well towards the outro of this song, as well as a really nice use of synthesizers and some really nicely layered stacked vocals, which do a fantastic job on the chorus. In fact, I'll just read the final lines of the album, which are vocal stacked or stacked things, harmonized, whatever. There's multiple. And yet a subtle smile, like thieves upon your face with scars and worn delusions, you still enter night with grace. And that ends Amir. Thus ends Amir. Goodbye, Amir. Just to make this fucking plain, I really enjoyed this album. Solid 9 out of 10 for this one. Ihsahn proving yet again why he's at the forefront of extreme metal, and why he's been leading the charge for so many years and so revered after all these years. There's not a doubt in my mind that this will be on my top 10 of the year. Absolutely not a doubt. I doubted myself. Strange how I said I didn't doubt myself with a complete lack of confidence. But yeah, that was Amir by Ihsahn, and I strongly recommend this album. Very, very good indeed. Give yourself over to the Dark Prince, if that's what he's called. I don't know if it is. You're rambling then. Check it out, you're gonna love it. Next up will probably be another subscriber's request for my good friend Cheer Yourself Deaf, which will be for the Deviate album by Kill to This. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, so I'm kind of curious as to what it sounds like. Absolutely no idea. Next week will be a bit different. I'm actually going to have a look at the Arctic Monkeys, because they're releasing their first album in quite a while, I believe. And I'm not sure what other stuff I'm going to do, so I might well do Why I'm a Metalhead Part 2. I've had a few people asking about that one, when I'm going to actually get around to doing that. So that I will do. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. I've done enough rambling today. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe, comment, share as well. Let people know about the channel. If you like what I'm doing, tell other people about it. Helps me out a lot. And the bigger I get, the more I can help out smaller bands, which is what I ultimately want to do. So, yes, check back soon when I'll have more of this.